Hey y'all, my name is James and I'm a Renaissance guy, and that means I like to do a lot of different things. And one of the things that I really enjoy doing is just about anything with my little 1436 John boat that you can see behind me. I've had a couple of videos about my John boat that I've posted in the past. Today I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the pros and cons of a 1436 John boat. Basically answering the question of should you get one if you're interested in getting a small boat like this. So what I've got back here is a Tracker Topper 1436. It is an inexpensive, very simple riveted John boat. I've done some modifications to it obviously, and I've made a video about my modifications. But today I just want to talk about the pros and cons of a 1436 riveted John boat in general. And before I get into it, if you like this sort of thing, if you like what I'm doing, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That helps me to know that you're enjoying what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for money, I'm doing it because I think maybe I've got some valuable insight to offer. So if you agree, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button so that other people can be more likely to see this come up in their feeds if you think it is of any value. So let's talk about the pros and cons of a 1436 riveted John boat. I'm going to start with the pros and then move on to the cons, and then share a couple of things that aren't really pros or cons, just points of information, and you can decide for yourself if they're pros and cons based on what you are looking for in a boat. So the first thing that I'll say that is a pro of a 1436 riveted John boat is that it is cheap. It is inexpensive. It is pretty easy to find these, or at least sometimes it's easy to find these used online, Facebook Marketplace, things like that. But even brand new, not a super expensive boat. I got this one brand new for about $1,000, and as boats go, that's pretty cheap. You can find used ones sometimes for just a couple of $100s. So inexpensive relative to other boats. The next pro that I want to talk about that I think is really valuable, especially for someone like me for whom this was my first boat, is that it's pretty low maintenance. I can't imagine a more low maintenance boat. When I think about some of the bigger boats with a lot of electronics and stuff going on it, that kind of scares me a little bit, especially with my first boat. And so I wanted to go with something super simple and super low maintenance, and this is definitely that. I've been very happy with how little maintenance it has needed, because basically it's just a piece of aluminum on the water, at least until I added my modifications. The third pro that I want to mention is that it is really easy to tow. My vehicle that I'm towing with is a Subaru Forester with a 4-cylinder engine, not a big vehicle, not a ton of towing power, and it tows this thing just fine. I haven't had any problems with it. A much bigger, heavier boat would probably be a challenge for me. So an easy to tow vehicle was definitely a pro for me. The next pro that I'd like to mention, and this is one of the main reasons I actually bought this thing, was that it can store in a fairly narrow space. So I have moved since I first bought the boat, but when I first got a boat, the house that I was living in had a very narrow, long driveway that had a hill on both sides. And that was going to be where I needed to park the boat, and I needed to be able to put the boat in the driveway and walk around it without having to step off the driveway onto a steep incline. And so I needed something that I could fit into a single car narrow driveway, and so the 1436 fit that bill. If I got a 1448, even a 1442, it would be pushing it. And so the narrow parking space was really important for me. And I've been pleased with that. And it, behind my little Subaru Forester, even the trailer sticking out with the lights sticking out the sides are not much wider than my little Subaru Forester. So I have really appreciated that. Another pro, and for me this may be the most important in terms of the functionality of the boat, is that it can run in shallow water and it can run in skinny water. I'm somebody who enjoys fishing. I'm also somebody who enjoys exploring, and so the ability to take this in really shallow water, if I'm just using my paddle and I need to get through something that's really shallow, less than a foot I can still get through. I have to pull the engines up, otherwise the prop will hit the bottom, but if I'm just paddling I can get through less than a foot of water, and there are a lot of boats that can't say that, and so I really appreciate that. And then it can also go in really skinny water, really narrow water, because of how narrow the boat is. One thing that I can functionally do that a lot of boats can't is take it on here in Arkansas, the Little Red River, to go trout fishing. I can get a lot of places in this boat that other people can't. The flat bottom and the, oh, there's my Facebook Messenger making a ding. The flat bottom and the narrow width makes me able to go to places that a lot of other boats can't, and I think that's really fantastic. And then my last pro for this boat is that with the max motor, and I've got the max size motor that it's rated for, which is 15 horsepower. With the max rated motor, it's got just enough power that I can pull my kids in a tube or on a knee board. Now, if I was trying to pull adults around on a tube, I wouldn't be able to go very fast. But while my kids are young, I've got just enough power to be able to pull them around on a tube or a knee board, and I think that's really fantastic. So it was really the right kind of mixture of small size but just enough power to do some fun stuff that it was perfect for my family when I got it. So those are the reasons I got it. Those are the pros, and definitely worth considering. But nothing is without its cons. So let me share with you what some of the cons are with this boat. First, a 36-inch wide bottom, that's a pretty narrow boat. And that means two things. First, it means that when you're standing up on it, particularly the way I've got it with a casting deck, or if you're standing up on the seat, if you're fishing, it can be pretty tippy. I've got pretty good balance, so I fish from my casting deck all the time with no problems. But as I've said in a previous video about its narrowness or its tippiness, its stability, is that if I've got two fishermen in it, you know, it's tough for both of them to be standing up. So that's one con of the narrow width. And then another con related to the size is moving from the front to the back of the boat, especially if I've got somebody else in it. You're pretty much stuck where you are. You can't, like, you know, walk around each other very easily because of how narrow it is, and you've got a limited amount of wide storage space. So if I'm taking my kids tubing, the tube that we use, even though it's just a one-person tube, is wider than the boat. So it's a little bit awkward, you know, getting that tube out into the middle of the water to be able to tube with because it's wider than the boat is. So it's kind of amusing to schlep that thing around if it's not being dragged behind the boat. So narrowness is definitely a con. Another con, and that's because this is a riveted John boat, is that the rivets can leak. And even though I bought this thing new, the rivets are not included in the warranty. It came with a warranty, but the warranty was just basically for the aluminum and the welds. But where there are rivets, there's no warranty for that. And so pretty quickly, after, you know, a year or so of having this boat, it started to leak at some of the rivets, largely I think because of, you know, hitting stumps in the water and stuff, because I like to take it in small skinny water. And some of the rivets have started to leak. I've fixed some of them, and I'm sure I will fix more of them over time, but that's definitely a downside of any riveted boat, not just a 1436. And then my third con, before I moved into some mixed stuff, is that this boat is really not very good on big water or any other kind of wavy water. It's always a challenge to get out onto a big lake if there's a lot of waves. It's because it's a flat bottom boat and because it's a narrow boat. It's really rough because it doesn't cut through the waves like a V bottom boat would, or like a modified V or a bass boat would. So the flat bottom is an issue there, and also because of how narrow it is, big waves do really make it move quite a bit. And that's an issue both for comfort and for safety. And so that is definitely a challenge. So you gain the ability for small water, the narrow, shallow water, and you lose the ability to do a lot with big wavy water. So those are the cons and the pros, and then a couple of things that are just mixed about it. The first is that with its max motor of 15 horsepower, the top speed that I get, depending on conditions, is anywhere in the low to mid 20s. So if I'm by myself in the boat with modifications that I've added, I can get into the mid 20s, you know, 23, 24, depending on which prop I've got. I've even gotten as high as 25 or 26 if conditions are just right. If I've got another adult in the boat, that top speed is going to slow down to 22, 23, maybe as low as 21 depending on the conditions. For me, that is plenty fast. I don't have a need for the ways that I use the boat. I don't have a need to go faster than that, but I know some people who would prefer a faster boat. So that's something to be aware of. And then the last mixed aspect that I will share is just the number of people that you can get into the boat comfortably. For some people, you only need to get 1 or 2, maybe 3 people into a boat. This is going to be plenty for you. I fish out of it with at least 1 other adult quite comfortably, and I've taken 2 of my kids fishing at a time. So I've been able to have 3 people fishing in it at once. And if I'm taking my kids tubing or kneeboarding, I can easily have myself and 1 kid as a spotter in the boat and the 3rd kid, being pulled behind in the tube. So if that's all you need to do, then this would be a great boat for you. If, however, you're hoping to take 5 or 6 people out on the water at once, this is not going to be the right boat for you. So those are things to consider. If you have any questions, other questions, things I didn't address about this boat that you're interested to know about, I'd be happy to answer them in the comments. I hope this video was informative and helpful for you. And if you're thinking about getting a boat, I hope you have a good time with it. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.